If you have the talent to do many things in fashion, then do it. That does not make you less of a designer. If you have to take a break, a season, then you do it. Don't just put things out there because you're told that you always have to have content. No, you're wasting money and you're putting yourself in debt.
Designer Jedda-Khan has and will always march to the beat of his own drum. He is a dear friend and one of the first independent Black designers that I met who was self-sustaining, a property owner in New York, wow, and someone who knew every square inch of the garment district like the back of his own hand. He's a rare talent with a dynamic personality and several opinions. This is a conversation you won't want to miss. Hello and welcome, Jedda-Khan, to a fashion moment. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And yourself?
I am thrilled to be talking to you. You know, this episode is going to drop during Black History Month in February, but also, you know, this is the time when New York Fashion Week comes back and the collections, hopefully we'll see what kind of hybrid if people are actually gonna do runway shows or not. So it'll be really, really interesting. But you're currently in New York, correct?
Absolutely.
You said absolutely. I love that. I love that. So, you know, you are one of my favorite designers, period. Not just because of your talent, but because of the amazing person that you are. And just, I mean, you're just freaking brilliant. So I'm so excited to have you on the show to just like delve into all of the pieces that make Jedda-Khan. So thank you. Let's start from the beginning, my friend. What was it like growing up in Baltimore? And where did your love for fashion come from?
Baltimore is such a magical city. Unfortunately, the only thing that you see from Baltimore is the negative violence, like
The Wire. You're like Baltimore, yeah. The Wire. Oh my God!
Like The Wire in the corner. Yes, like that's the only thing that is publicized. But what a lot of people don't know is that Baltimore has a huge history of Black excellence in arts.
Wow.
It is one of the hub cities, like the main hub cities on the East Coast. So throughout the 19th century, like entertainers, as they were traveling from the South to the North, they stopped into Baltimore and into DC as the main stops, like for entertainment. So because of that history, throughout the years, Baltimore became like a little big city for Black excellence,
Wow.
and which have stayed. It has never left. They have like one of like the biggest like art cuisine, like with food scenes. They have one of the biggest like galleries and art scenes, like for Black talents. Today, they have like the most art museums in the 3-mile radius, I think like number 2 in the country.
Wow.
Like a lot of people don't know this. So me growing up in that culture was really, really inspiring. It was always something creative to do. If it was into dance, if it was in, you know, the arts, it was just so many things to do growing up. It was such a fun city. Now let's go ahead and just segue. So how did I get into fashion?
Or just like, is it something that's always been with you, or was it something that progressed over time?
Well, it it's blood. So yeah, I was born into it. My great grandmother was a dressmaker and taught my grandmother and her sisters, and they were dressmakers. And my mother and my uncle picked up the trade. My mother was a dressmaker, my uncle was a tailor, and then I learned from her.
Wow.
So just as a child, growing up, and I didn't think of it as, this is what I was learning, this is what I want to be, I want to grow up to be this design. No, it was just like a part of life. So for me, like helping my mother was a chore. That was a way.
Put those buttons on. Redo that sequin.
That was how, like, to make some extra money. She's like, if you cut out,
oh, so you were pattern making. You're like your whole life, basically.
Yeah, but little did I know that those little things, like those treasures, like, really came into like jewels. Like those were the blueprints. It never, like growing up, like I was into so many things. I was a very active child. Fashion was never one of the things like, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create. No, it really was not like that. It was literally just like, basically like the kids who grow up that parents that own like a convenience store or bodega store, like they grow up, you just have to do it because that's just a part of the business,
Absolutely.
So it happened like that for me. And then when I got into high school, like I told you, Baltimore is about the creative place. We have fashion show clubs in high school. See, people don't have these type of things. But in Baltimore, every high school has a fashion club, and then you produce, the seniors direct the show, and they produce the show. And you have scenes, and you have to create outfits, get outfits, based upon the theme of the scenes, and then you have a show, and like the whole school comes. And then it's a big competition because schools compete against one another who will produce the best fashion show. Like each school actually has like a name of their fashion club. Yes, my high school, it was called Retro Models. Like that's the name of our fashion club. Yes, like the most iconic school in Baltimore City. They are called Fashionettes.
The Fashionettes.
And yes, they're called the Fashionettes, and that's Western High School. That is the only all female, women, black school in the country. The only one.
Wow.
The only one. And they have a historical fashion group called the Fashionettes. Like literally, like they like choose the president like every year who's going to be next. Like you have to go through like model school courses, everything. It's called the Fashionette. Like one of the other bigger clubs is City High School, which is another historical black high school in the country, and theirs is called Catwalk Models. Yes.
Stop.
So this is a big. So that's why I said, like, people have no idea how creative Baltimore is.
No, this is amazing. This is great information. Yeah. You're schooling us.
So in my house, I was the president of my fashion club, of course.
Of course.
And and I was actually like, I broke one of the records. I was like one of the only juniors that actually have like a scene in a senior show. So the year before, one of their board members dropped off last minute, and one of their scenes was missing. So they, put it up for grabs, like a competition, whoever can come up with the best idea. And I was, as a junior, I had like the best idea. And at that time, the scene that I came up with another fellow classmate, it was called Elements. And it was about like earth, wind, fire. Yes.
I love it. Are there any photos? Because I would love to see that.
No, you're going to make me dig.
Up. No. Yeah. I was like, ooh, in the show notes, but I guess not. No, I love this.
So that's how that happened in high school, because, I was very fashionable and stylish in high school. Like it just went hand in hand, of course, because of my background. And then I was just really, really into street fashion at the time. Hip hop was just big. And then you were just wearing all the designer names. Like in my high school, we wore all designer names. So yeah, it really was like Rap City, like MTV.
Boo-boo.
Yeah, but and Versace and Chanel.
Oh, you're like, no, Versace and Chanel.
No. And like Iceberg, like if they was wearing we were wearing Iceberg. Like
yes, Iceberg. Woo, I remember that. Tried to get my hands on that. Lord, didn't work out, but it's all good. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was like more like a transition of getting me ready. And then what happened was that I was going to Morehouse, and I wanted to be an architect, engineer. That's what I wanted to go to school for. Yeah, and like I told you before, I'd never seen fashion as a career. It was just something that I did.
Wow.
Yeah, so
but you're so good at it, Jedda. You're so good.
I know, but like it never like was, and I guess because it was always like a mom and pop business in my family. Like everybody had full careers, and it was a side thing. So I never knew like the business full blown.
So what tipped the pot where you're just like, you know what? So
that's what I was getting ready to tell you. So yes, I was going to school for Morehouse, and last minute, my financial aid fell through. Something happened. You know how it just
really Morehouse? Nope.
Yeah, and when I say last minute, I'm really talking about like I graduated and like at the beginning of June. Like I was already accepted and everything, and then beginning of June, then they send me like financial. Yes, one of my friends was one of my close friends at the time, dear friend Aisha Bellamy. She was going to a private fashion institute in Atlanta called Barter, and she said to me, she was like, "Well, hey, listen, this school is in Atlanta. It's very easy to get in. You should just come to this school for a semester. If you don't like the school, you can just transfer and go to Morehouse because you will already be in Atlanta." So at least, because the whole point is I did not want to miss a semester, because usually people that hold off school, they never go.
Yeah.
So I told her, I was like, well, she was like, come on, it's going to be fun. Like, I'm going to be there. It's a couple other friends that was coming to Atlanta, from my high school. So she was like, we're going to be down here. You should come with us, X, Y, and Z. I was like, okay. So I was like, what are you going to school for? And she was like, well, I'm taking fashion merchandising. And I was like, what is that?
No, that's fair. Yeah.
And then and I said to her, I was like, what should I do? And she was like, fashion design. And I literally said this to her. I said, that is a real major.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she was like, yes. And I was like, are you serious? And she was like, yes. And she was like, you designed the whole show. Like, you made half our clothes. Like, yes. And I was like, okay. And I'm going to tell you something special. So, all of this just happened like literally drop of a dime, right? Mm-hmm. And I told my mother, and I was like, well, God, Aisha, just told me about all this X, Y, and Z. She told me about the school X, Y, and Z. And she was like, well, she told me that I should just, try to come and go for fashion design. And of course, my mother already knew. This is, a backstory that I didn't know about my mother. Mm-hmm. And she was like, yes, of course. She was like, if you don't like it, then you can just easily just go to Morehouse. But she was like, let me share something. She was like, let me share something with you. And I was like, okay. She was like, I wanted to go to school, to major in fashion design.
What?
And I was like, what? Exactly. I never knew this. And she said to me, she was like, I wanted to go to school to major in fashion design, but my father would not support me. Her father said that he would not sign no papers. He said that that's not a real career. It's not real. He will not go into debt. He will not risk for you to go and play in school. So my mother never went to college. Her father told her, go and just get a real job. So my mother went to Social Security and got a job straight out of high school. And she went to typing class because back in those days, it's like a secretary, things like that. My mother did a lot of secretary jobs while she was in high school. So she got like a secretary certificate like school, and then she got a job at Social Security, her first job. But she said that if her father would have supported her, she would have went to school for fashion design. Wow. And she told me that, yes, you have the talent, and I think that you would do far than it will succeed far greater than anything that you expect. You should go.
Wow.
And within a week, I was accepted into the school, and it was a lot of paperwork, very fast. But private institutes work completely different.
Yep.
It's really a business for them. Yes, it's processed extremely fast. A lot of essays, portfolios, interviews, like all of this happened in a week. But to the point, I didn't think I was going to get in because it was so much, so quick. But yes, they accepted me, and I was on my way. And that's how I got into fashion design.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Your mother, was such just an integral part. And did I say that right, Rebecca? We're going to have to get that out. I'm like, was just such a major part of your life and such an inspiration in so many ways. And thank you for sharing that story about her, because, I know how much, or I can only imagine how much she, and how much she does truly mean to you. I'm curious, like, what would you say is one of the, biggest lessons that you learn from your mother, not only about fashion, but also about life? Something that you keep with you.
Okay. One of her favorite lines is that every dream has to be financed.
Wow.
That is so important. You always have to figure out like where this money is coming from. And usually half of the time, like you're going to spend more time figuring out the money than the actual dream part. But she was like, always keep that in mind. Every dream has to be financed. So figure out the money, and the dream will unfold.
Wow.
That is one of the biggest things is that she was my first investor.
Wow.
Like, I was very fortunate.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I believe it took, because for me, like, it was just like I was born to the right person. Like, I came through the right vessel, because it took for her to be oppressed for me to fly.
That is a word, Jedda. Writing that in the show notes. It's going to be like a book. It's going to be like a pamphlet by the time this interview is over. Oh, man. Wow. Yes, I will be sitting on that one today. Your siblings. You have siblings, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Are they in the fashion business as well?
Yes. Well, like not now, because the fashion business is not what it was.
We will get to that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. But yeah, my brother for 12 years was a corporate exec on the fashion merchandising side at Calwood. And my sister was in accessories. But yeah, both of them, they, said goodbye and good riddance. Like,
wow,
they did their bid, and they're not turning back. Like, wow. No. And I think the only way to get them back would, I guess, if they have their own company, on their own terms. But the business as we know it will never exist again. It's just evolution.
Yeah.
Things change.
Where do you think it's currently going?
Where it's going is basically where we are at, small, which is great for me because, I lived in the space. I'm just glad that now everybody can join me.
So a shift from the larger brands and labels.
Oh yeah. All of that licensing, expanding to a lifestyle brand, all of that. No, big the over saturation. No, all of it. No, it's just too much, and it's not enough to sustain. And not enough, masses like market to keep it up. Like, no, absolutely not. Small is the way to go. Specialty, intricate, like one of a kind. It's so much that you can get, at a drop of a dime that you really have to narrow the scope and focus on one thing, one direction, and stay in that place and amplify that place, to get people's attention. Like, that is like the future.
Wow.
Like, that is it.
We didn't even talk about how in the world you ended up in New York. How did that happen?
This is all good stories.
Well, start writing it down for the book.
Well, I had one of those New York stories, like those things that just happened. So
like a hole in the wall apartment.
No, unfortunately, no, I didn't have that. Like, no, I had one of those like lucky stories, the right place at the right time with the right people.
Wow.
One of those type of New York stories. Before I came to New York, there was this designer competition called by Linden Day Associates. That's the publishing company that owns like all the Black magazines, like Black Men's Magazine, Upscale, Black Men's Swimsuit, Black Woman magazines. Like, they have like, I believe like 8 to 10 at the time. Now magazines are gone.
Yeah, I was ooh, haven't heard that in a while. Those names.
yeah, those. But we're talking about now, like 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yes, he's going on 2 decades, in fact.
My goodness.
Time flies. But they had a modeling competition and they had a independent designer competition. And my friend that I went to college with, Beatrice, she did the modeling competition. And she knew that I was transitioning. They held this competition in Newark. But a lot of the associates and judges and executive members are based in New York. So my friend told me, hey, I just graduated from college. And she was like, hey, you're getting ready to transition to New York. And I said, yes. And she was just like, so what's the plan? And I'm like, I don't know. At that time, I really believed that I was really going into the direction of to continue schooling overseas because I knew that I was going to end up in luxury. And if you want to be in luxury and really build a career, then overseas is the way to go. The American market is about ready to wear, sportswear.
Yeah.
So I knew that luxury was going to be my place. And backtrack really quick too, as well, is that when I was in college, my senior year, I was doing my senior collection. I had a professor, her name was Cassandra Harris. She was one of my sewing construction professors. And she told me that when I was graduating, because I only have an associate's degree, she told me, she said, listen, she said, a lot of people in your class do not have options. She said, but you have options. She says, your type of talent only comes once in a while. And she said, you might not know what you possess, but she said, I'm telling you what I know. She said, these are your options. She said, you can continue schooling. And she told me, she was like, you should really look into programs that have some type of, crossroad, the expat programs where you can do like 4 months overseas and then, here, or you can just go there, for a year, those type of programs. She said you could do something like that because it's affordable. She said you have to go there because of the fact that you're going to be into luxury. Like it's nowhere else for you to be. She said, or you can just go straight to New York and get an internship and get hired. She said, you have the talent. She said, you have the talent. They will take you. And because I learn by eye, what I see, I can pick it up quickly. And I mean, in school, like I was just soaking things up extremely fast, like 10 times quicker than anyone else around me. But also, you got to remember, a lot of this stuff, what I learned and been conditioned. So, like, I knew a lot of small tricks and things like that. And then they were teaching me proper foundation. That's what school taught me, proper foundation. And, when you work, in sewing shops and things like that, you don't learn, like, proper foundation. Like, no, you learn all the tricks, like all the skilled people, techniques.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because they've been doing it so long, they're not gonna do, A, B, and C. No, they are working on, Z, the level skill of Z. and you better pick it up. So she's the one who told me. Right. So she's the one who planted that seed into my head that, okay, you can try New York, but I think I'm just going to go hit. New York just seemed so big. So I was just like, and I didn't think I was ready. I didn't know what type of talent that I possessed. And I'm going to be honest with you, not at all. So I was like, I'm just going to continue with school and go overseas. My mother was, she was like, whatever you want to do, I will help you out. Don't worry. Like, let's just figure it out. You just go. So that's where I was going. And then my friend threw the wrench in the way. And she was like, hey, you should do this designer competition. Okay. So automatically, I'm going to talk fast, okay? So I signed up. I did the competition, okay? This was the 6 months before, like, I was getting ready to leave, really look at semesters to go overseas, or 6 months if I was going to go to New York. I decided to, make a little pit stop in New York and do this competition. Okay, in this competition, Kirsten, I did not even place in the top 3. I'm gonna tell you the first lesson that I learned. This is the first lesson that I learned in the industry. It's not about what you know; it's about who you know. It's not about your talent. It's about your association. That was the first lesson that I learned from that competition. Okay. Wow. I'm just going to let you know that second place, it was a gown that had glued on feathers and rhinestone. And
glued?
You could see the glue, like hot glue. You can see like the residue. But that person, that designer, knew everyone. When I tell you, at that point, it's early. I'm not used to, rejection. You know what I'm saying? Like that was like my first major rejection, disappointment. Like I always excelled, and no matter what, me sizing up the competition, I already knew no matter what I was going to be in the top 3. No matter what, I knew what I had, and I seen the stuff. So I said, if I wasn't going to win, I'm definitely going to be in the top 3. And I wasn't. Okay. I was livid. Okay. Extremely upset.
Crushed.
Beyond.
Yeah.
Beyond. Right.
Wow.
Behind. I'm packing up my things. I'm just trying to get out really, really quick before I break down. Because I am angry knowing that someone with a garment of that quality was able to place second, but of my talent, didn't even make the top 3. So I am extremely angry, and I'm just trying to rush to get out, right? And the show producer comes to me and says, I know you're really upset. I understand. He was like, I really want to exchange information with you, I think I can help you, talk, a little bit. I wasn't hearing it. I didn't want to speak to anyone because anybody associated with that production, clearly, if this is what you chose and you all are fine with this, I need to be far away from you.
Oh my goodness.
And in my mind, that's what I was thinking. But he said to me, there's someone that wants to speak to you. And he was like, I really believe that you should speak to this person. He was like, they have a showroom in New York on 7th Avenue, and they work with a lot of emerging designers. And he was like, I really believe that this would be very beneficial for a talent like yourselves. I'm just going to know everything that he said to me just completely just went into one ear and out the other. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. And I packed my things and I just literally started leaving. Like so many people were stopping me saying, saying
of course,
me, like, oh my, you were
there's
robbed.
No meltdown like a fashion meltdown. Because in fashion, there's so many emotions.
Yes, it's so many people it was like at least like 300 people, 200 to 300 people at the show. And all of these people stopping me, just reminding me, I can't even get out. I am losing it.
Wow.
As I was walking out the door, the assistant of that showroom ran after me and stopped me. His name was Miss Cheesecake. He had a T-shirt line.
Stop.
He passed. Unfortunately, he passed maybe like 14 years ago. He was a sweetheart, but he was the assistant to that showroom. He ran after me, and he said to me, listen, he said, I need you to understand this. He said, I know you are completely you are upset. He said, but more than half of those judges, he said, are has-beens. That's exactly what he said to me. He said that this is why I told you, I love this guy.
Lordy.
Yeah. He said that they are has-beens and out of touch of what is fashion. I will never forget
this. Whoa.
He said that I am an assistant of a showroom on 7th Avenue. And he said, we work with emerging designers. And he said that he was just like, where did you get your clothes? Like, where did you get it produced? And I told him I made it. Mm-hmm. And he said, you have to come to New York this week to see us. He said, I promise you, just please come and see us. And we can explain what you do. He was like, I cannot believe you made. He was like, you made those velvet corsets. I made velvet corsets with it was chain mesh tassels and foxtails hanging from it, like on two of the looks. straight out of college, Kirsten.
Wow.
This is what I'm designing.
Wow.
Okay. Multicolor, sheer blouse that was color blocked. Neon orange, green, and purple with the corset fox.
And you lost to a dress with hot glue all over it.
With the hot glue, it was burnout, silk chiffon.
Ooh, burnout, yes. Mm.
Yes, would and I have a picture of
I
one
think it's coming back. Actually, I'm like, hold on a second.
Yes, of the sheer jumpsuit with gold metallic like embroidered leaf on top of like this.
Yes. Oh my god. I live for a gold embroidered leaf. Okay.
Okay.
Oh my god.
He said to me, you made those? And I said, yes. And like I told you before, I didn't know. I just made things that I liked. I didn't know the level of what I was doing. This is just what I did. And he said, you have to come. And I told him that, I'll think about it. I'm thinking about going to school. I'm really not interested in, in the showroom or New York or anything like that. And he was just like, you have to come. They hunted me down for 2 weeks, Kirsten. Finally paid for me for a bus ticket to come to New York. I sat down with them and he told yes. I sat down with them and then they said that we produce emerging designers to show in New York Fashion Week. We start you off with building you a portfolio. Yes, this is. They said we start you off with building your portfolio, small promos, get people in here, basically trunk shows. Get, stylists and things in here, get excited, build a little small buzz, see how people react. If people react well, then he said, then we're start to push you to do like a smaller joint, collaboration showcase with other emerging designers for New York. And we'll see how that, the response from how you do. And then we'll build you from there to having your own independent show and things like that. And that's how it happened. I said, okay, my mother talked me into it. My mother, she said, what do you have to lose? Because I said, no. I was just like, I don't want to, pay retainer. This is money, and things that I didn't understand. And I was like, I don't want to waste. And I'm just like, listen, to me, $1,800 for 3 to 4 months was a lot of money to me.
Absolutely.
Back then. It was a lot. My mother was my investor. First investor, and she said, look, you have 500, I will cover the rest. She was like, I will cover the rest. She said, if anything fails, she said, look, what do you have to lose? You can just go to school in 6 months like you were going to do. Well, within that first 3 months that I paid that retainer, I scored 5 editorial polls. Yeah. And
major.
Yes.
Wow.
Just by stylists coming and looking at the pieces. Yes.
Wow.
And then within 6 months, I started showing in New York Fashion Week.
Amazing.
And then the rest is history.
Wow.
So that's what I said. I really had one of those New York stories.
Yeah. Unlike any story I've heard, my goodness, you get to New York, you're showing at Fashion Week, your products being, featured in various magazines. Like, what? That's like a designer's dream, right out of school, representation, even though you didn't want it. I mean, it's a dream.
And the whole idea had no idea of the significance.
I cannot with you. It's like, born into it, It's sort of like you're rejecting your destiny, but your destiny keeps pulling you. Like, nope, this is what you're going to do. I love it. So you have all of this, success and you're moving along. I know that you were on a show called All on the Line with Josie. With Josie.
Very unfortunate.
So if you could just tell folks, what the show was about and, what your experience was like and also just some of the key lessons that you learned from that experience as well,
Okay, we're just gonna make it quick. I can't remember the network, but it's on a documentary network that produced the show, and that was the only reason why I really signed up to do the show, because it was pitched to me that it was going to be more of a documentary of independent designers.
Oh, wow.
But it really turned out to be reality TV.
Like a competition?
No, not a competition, but a lot of things was just made up.
Oh, I see. And so what was
staged.
The actual
a lot of things
premise of the
premise
show?
The premise of the show is that you meet with Josie. He becomes, a fashion advisor, which that was.
And what was Josie? Where was Josie at that time? He was.
I believe he was the creative director of. He was the creative director of Elle magazine
at that time. And what year was that show? Like, it's been so long.
I believe that was like 2009.
Wow. Jeez, I can't believe it's been that long.
My
goodness.
Yes. Time flies. Yes, I believe that was like in 2009, and at that point, he was the creative director of Elle. And he was doing like a lot of TV projects at the time. And I really did sign up because I thought that, at first they had another host doing the show that they reached out to me for, and I turned them down. And there was nobody like really significant or associated with fashion, no major name. And after they pulled Josie onto the project, they reached back out to me, circle back around. And then they had a whole new storyline. So, and then it was produced under another network. And I can't think of the documentary, but it's a doc network. So it was really pitched as a documentary. The premise of the show is that you're going to meet with Joe, and these are designers that been in the business for a few years, 5 to 10 years, and basically hit a ceiling. So we're going to revamp and relaunch, like, under the guidance, of with Joe.
Got it.
Like yes, that's what the show was supposed to be about. But then it just turned out to be reality TV. You just got with Joe, they just staged a whole lot of stuff, prank stuff, and it wasn't really true to the essence of what it was. And you know me, I am a very real person. You know me.
No chaser.
None. And I'm not an industry person. I'm not, let's do coffee, let's do tea, let's do
it's
brunch.
crazy. Now that you're saying it, I'm like, you know what? You're not you're right. You're not what people would view as an industry person, but you're a designer who happens to work in it.
And that's exactly what because everybody tells me, it was just like, wow, you're just like home, you're like a friend, you're like comfort. It's not. No, I'm very relaxed. It's very comfortable. Like, fashion isn't rocket science, okay?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Don't you dare. Yes, it is.
Listen, okay. Listen,
and Elia and a whata?
It is a privilege, and it's a joy because it's art.
Yeah.
And people have to remember that it's objectable. Like, it's the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's so many ways to be interpreted, like, so no, like when you start to say that it has to be this and this is what it is and this is like the principle and this, no, to me, it turns too much into a business. Yes, it is a business, but me, I'm on the art side.
Yeah.
And so it's different from me. I'm like a real person that works in fashion. Like,
and what's so interesting? You mentioned like, something doesn't have to be this or that, like the very harsh labeling or this is in or not. Yeah. And it's so interesting. No one can do that with you particularly either, because I've always admired just how independent you've been, like in the industry and doing what you do, but also you're Black and you're Muslim. Like, what? And a designer? What? I was like, what kind of unicorn have I just met years ago?
Go ahead and pull out all the receipts.
I mean, those are just the ones I know about. I mean, who knows? Like, I'm learning so much today in this interview, things I didn't know about you before, all of these stories, just like...
Because to me, I think none of those things matter to me. It's like people, and now in our business, it's about image. And people build like all of this image to sell all of this fluff. It's just, it bothers me. Like, don't talk, just show me. Show me in your actions. Show me in your work. And then, I'm that person. And now with social media, it really takes like narcissism to a whole nother level because of the fact of the way that you have to, market, your products and yourself. Like,
Oh, it's wild.
Anybody can, yes, anybody can be anything, and people are everything in a split of a second.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so terrible at it. It took me like a good year when the selfie happened for me to even do one. Like, it just felt so strange to me.
Kirsten, you know me. I am.
Maybe I'm getting old. Terrible. I don't know.
and that's what I was saying. Like, I'm just getting out of touch because I only post things when I have something significant to say or to share or to post or for work. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Like, yes, I understand it is a business. So you're supposed to keep content fresh all the time. It is just work.
It's exhausting.
And it's just,
whew.
That's what it is.
Shout out to Megan, my social media manager. She's the bomb because I was just like, I can't. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, help, help.
So, and I'm the same route. I'm at that point now where I just said that, listen, I'm just going to have an extra expense and I'm just going to have to invest in someone and let them do it because I just don't have the energy to do it.
Yeah. Well, what would you say is the overall key to your success? I mean, you've always been like self-sustaining throughout your entire career.
So for me to speak to the indies and the emerging designers, this is so important. And I'm going to circle back to my mother, where she says that every dream has to be financed.
I'm applying that to all aspects of my life. I'm writing that one down. Personal, professional, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. So, because when we talk about The Secret, people are like, how did I weather the storm and how did I survive? And the truth is because I have a million careers. Like, we're going to talk real. Most people, like independent artists, emerging artists, do not really keep it real. They don't tell you the truth that, they have 2 full-time jobs. They don't tell you those things. They don't tell you. They're just putting up, content, basically fake it till you make it type of thing.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Like, you really have to secure finances. So you really can't be just, doing a collection that's just not selling. Why would you do a collection period? And in this time, it needs to be capsule. If you're just starting out, you need to really be focusing on like 8 pieces, 4 looks. You need to really center it down. It's very expensive to produce, and then it's just hard to keep up with the market, especially since everything is so cheap now. Independent designers and emerging designers, it's expensive to produce this stuff when you first starting out because you're dealing with smaller units, to get made. The smaller the amount, the more you have to pay in production. So that's why these huge conglomerate companies can put it so cheap, with these products because they're doing hundreds of thousands of units of, one item. So it's dirt cheap to get that produced so they can bring that cost all the way down. But when it comes to independent designers, people please invest in independent. And yes, you pay more for them, but we have to put out so much to get those pieces made.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking to them, for me, Kirsten, me, when I got stuck maybe in like around the 10th year of my career, someone told me that you're more than just a designer. You're just staying here, just designing. You are just going into a deep hole financially. Use all of your talents. It's okay to step outside, the color outside the lines. Like, if you can go into creative directing, do that. If you can do stylist, assisting that pays well and it's with a reputable name, do that. If you can do consulting for emerging designers and you have the resources because you know all the ropes, then you do that. And I'm glad that somebody stepped in and said that to me. And then that's when I started to license my talent and really expand into all of these different facets in fashion because I really had the goods to deliver. And, when I open to the universe, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say yes. Because, many people reach out to me for all of these interesting, projects.
Mm-hmm.
But I always, in the beginning, I said no, because you're a designer, you're supposed to designer, you're supposed to have this look, you're supposed to have this, you're supposed to do this. Yeah, if you stay in there, it will bury you.
Wow.
As an independent artist, you have to think outside of the box. You have to be creative. And money is important. It has to be financed. So you have to do what you have to do. And that's really what saved me by expanding to all of these not only did it save me, but it opened up so many other doors of opportunity that I never would have reached, by myself. I would need like a lot of PR to get in certain doors in spaces that I have been in. Because, I'm a part, the creme de la creme. with so many, fashion directors, creative directors, international, artists. But all of this came from smaller projects, specialty projects that put me into another space, from another referral to another referral to another referral. And this is important for, these designers. They need to understand, if you have the talent to do many things in fashion, then do it. That does not make you less of a designer. If you have to take a break, a season, then you do it. Don't just put things out there because you're told that you always have to have content. No, you're wasting money and you're putting yourself in debt. Take your time, put your project together. And like you know me, Kirsten, I do collections when it's warranted. Other than that, then I just do the specialty pieces of private clientele. But I'm not just putting out a collection just for show to keep up, with the Joneses, for people just to say I have a collection. Because the real talk is that I'm producing, like when I do capsule collections, mine will be, 10 to 15 looks. Mm-hmm. Really people are only interested in like 3 to 4. You're not wasting all of that money doing all the other things.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what independent artists really need to understand. Like, you have to understand, like, the business part, which is really true, and finance, and figure that out, how to keep the dream going. And one of my icons, and I'm so heartbroken that I didn't get the chance to meet him before he passed, was Jedda-Khan NYC. Like, yes. I used his career as my motto.
Well, we interviewed Veronica Webb, and she was just talking about how inspirational he was, and just showing her the way and teaching her French, and just such an amazing human being. So it really, man, you just hear amazing things.
Yeah, everyone speaks how he was just so influential in their lives, and such a light and a changing point, to them. And just afar, I followed his career, and that's because we share a lot of the things in, I'm just going to say, in a racist business. And, and he really created a path. He marched to the beat of his own drum. And when he did it, and when he felt like it, and how he wanted to do it, and that, like, I needed to see that, like, somebody like me surviving in this business on an international, like a global scale, like domination, doing it, your way. Like, he did that. And I think that independent designers and emerging designers should look up Jedda-Khan NYC. Not his just work, but his story. His story is what is really, yes, his work is, that's just a whole nother level. That's a whole nother call in.
That's an episode. Okay. We'll dedicate an episode to life for sure.
Okay, that. But his story is extremely important for independent emerging artists of the African diaspora.
Wow.
And I look to that. Like, I found that when I discovered him, and first, because it was a shocking to me, because I heard of the name, and then you hear of the brand,
Right.
around, so, but I was just like, I never knew the person.
Wow.
I never knew the man, I never really knew the person. And then when I really got into it, and I was just like, how did I miss that? Because I know all the iconic looks, but I never really associated. But once I learned the story, I understood. You wasn't going to see him everywhere, plastered up over everything. That was not him. It was about quality and not quantity.
Wow.
So that's what I learned. And that's what independent emerging artists should know. And then especially in today's world, that blueprint of what a designer should look like and be, that's long gone. Okay. It is free range to be whatever you want today, to create your own lane because of social media.
And it's global. It's global because you're traveling all
right.
over the place. How do you get involved with these projects? Like, what countries have you been going to? I saw you were in Morocco at one point. Like, I mean, just showcasing your designs around the world. Like, how does that happen? Do you have a favorite?
It's almost like we need to have a part 2 of this.
Yeah. Seriously.
Long story short, first off, it's hard to make this, because this is very important. It's hard to cut this short.
No, take your time. Take your time.
Okay. Well, I'm going to talk because this has to do with systemic racism in the business.
Mm-hmm.
This also has to do with, within our own community and in fashion. And I'm talking about African Americans not supporting one another. The heartache of that and what I learned in this business. And why does this correlate with my international travels? Well, here's why. Okay. When I first started in this business, I was doing very well. I would say around my 3rd or 4th season. I mean, showing, I'm getting the press, but I'm not getting the support from the African Americans in the business.
Mm-hmm. And do you mean other designers? Do you mean executives?
No. I'm talking about executives. I'm talking about editors. I'm talking about, showroom people. I'm talking about, senior fashion execs, African Americans in the business, gatekeepers. Because, in that time that you had to go through channels to actually to reach the masses.
I call it the Underground Railroad for the folks who had information and would pass it along.
Right. People don't know it's a lot of fashion mafias. That's what we call.
Yeah.
It's a lot of different fashion mafias at that time. Gatekeepers, you had to go through those channels to make it through the masses. The blessing today is that it's direct consumer with social media. It was not like that, back then. You had to go through those channels. And I could not get the support from those gatekeepers. They only are interested, once they see that you can be some interest to them of their brands that they are associated with. Then they will extend an olive branch. But until then, they wasn't interested, for a prime example, the way that Anna was using the incubator to invest in designers, to build those designers, to have those brands. And then now she has those brands that support and invest her projects. I just didn't understand why they could not do that or couldn't understand that concept. It was very hurtful to me. This is another reason why I'm really shunned away from industry type of folks. Because of that, disappointment, doors slammed, calls not returned, emails not answered, even with the press that I was, garnering, the truth, everything, could not get them to come to the show.
Wow.
You send in second interns, like second assistants and things like that. Essence never came back in those in that time. And when they finally did come, I think it was around, like, I remember with Essence, I would say this was around 2005 or six. That was around like my sixth collection or fifth collection. Around that time, they finally sent an intern.
Wow.
Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I'm dealing with that. Okay. And then all of a sudden, the guy that I met in the beginning of my career, remember I said that.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Okay. Because, you know, everybody knows everybody's small business. They keep the same money. Right. He did a small production of emerging shows too, as well, during Fashion Week in that time, like his own production. He was connected with an international fashion charity called FEMA, which is Festival International de la Mode Africaine. And they put on the biggest fashion festival in Africa, in Niger. And this festival is to bring designers of the African diaspora all over the world to bring awareness to the poverty and education of women and children in their country.
Wait, what year was
Niger.
that?
That, I believe, was in 2000.
Was it 08, 09?
No, this was like in 04.
04, okay.
This was like 04. This is the first time. This was my first introduction, like major show on the continent. Like, this was my introduction to the continent of Africa. With FEMA, and the country was Niger. And again, the name of FEMA is Festival International de la Mode Africaine. And he was good friends with the founder and designer of that organization. This producer name is Ron Cook. We're still good friends to this day. He reached out to me and asked me for a favor. He was producing a show in DC, remember, from Baltimore. He was producing the governors come from like a conference. All the governors come for a conference in DC like once a year or twice a year, something like that. So for the governor wives that travel with them, they do like a luncheon, a tea, and then they also have a budget, and he produces a fashion show for them.
So fun.
A designer dropped out last minute. So he called me and he was like, hey, can you do me a big favor? Like, are you going to be home in Baltimore or are you around? Because I'm producing a show in DC. Can you bring your collection? Like, I need like a plug. Like, you know, we're cut short to designers, but if you can come, that will really save me. I brought the collection and I came and I did that for him. Now over the years, we have built a good relationship. And I gave that. I did that for that show. In that same show that he did, the owner of FEMA, Festival International de la Mode Africaine, sent his collection, because he's actually a French African designer as well. Sent his collection to the States for that governor's, you know, show, for the fashion show. And when the producer, Ron Cook, sent that tape, when the show was over, a month later, he sent a copy of the show, the DVD, to the designer. The designer name is Al Fidi, and he's the owner of, you know, of the nonprofit. And when he seen that and he seen my collection, he said that I have to have that young man, whoever he is, I have to have him to come and show in my production in Niger.
Wow.
He seen my clothes and he was just like, I don't know who that is and why I had not heard of him. And so his assistant called me and they booked the trip completely, all expenses paid for, and sent me with a travel liaison. Do you hear me, Kirsten?
Well, hello. Yes. Because,
you know, Niger is really Niger, but, you know, it's colonized by the French. So it's pronounced Niger. And it's 99, you know, 0.9, you know, French speak. I don't speak French. So, of course, I need somebody to travel with me to, you know, that could translate and can be comfortable. Yes.
Wow.
And they sent that. That was my introduction to. And when I got there, what he explained to me was, he said that, because at that time, I think I was like 24, 23. I was really, really young. And I looked like I was like 17, 16. Right? That's what he said. He said to me, and then he had two productions. He had an emerging production, and then he had the senior show of like designers that's been producing like 20 plus years. He put me in that show. He put me in that show with all the senior designers. And he said to me that, he said, I had to have you here because you are the future. He said, we have a new demographic of young Black, African, people of the African diaspora that are really coming to the festival. And he was like, what you are creating and what you represent is the future. He was just like, your talent. He said, your level of talent I have never seen. He said, I've never seen that before. He said, because at this time he's been in the business for like 30 years. And he was just like, and I don't know how to pronounce the Couture Council, but he's a part of the Couture Council in France.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Couture. Yes, I don't know how to pronounce the name of the council, but yes, he is a member. Yes. And he said to me, your level of talent, he was just like, you are the future. And me being there, the way that I was like embraced and uplifted and people invest in me, that was the first time. And I said, I shared this only to like very close people, but I said, that was the first time that I realized my talent.
Wow.
And it took me to travel 4,000 miles across the world to understand like my value. Whereas in New York, I have this talent and it's just stepped over, spit on, and overlooked by my own people, that's why I said I had to bring this full circle, Kirsten, by my own people in the business. It took me to travel over there. These people have been in the business 20 plus years. Okay, 20 plus years, world-renowned designers, all embracing me.
But what's so interesting? It seemed, just because of, everything that's been going on in the country, Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, it just seems like, the industry really felt the pressure along with many other American institutions. And now it seems like everyone is gung-ho about supporting Black designers and Black talent in the fashion industry. What are your thoughts on that shift and what's happening now, given your prior experience?
There's just so much pain there. For me, that it does not affect me personally because I survive without the support and without the help, made my own space.
Yeah.
Because I realized the truth that they are not interested, in me or investing in me unless I can bring, or uplift their brand or bring something major to their table. And if that's what you want, I'm not interested.
When you say they, are you referring to the industry?
Yes, I'm referring to the industry. Yes. And more importantly, our people, African Americans, people, in the business. That's more importantly who I'm talking about.
Wow.
That's who I'm talking about. Because now, like you said, it's trending. So everybody feels safe and comfortable to celebrate. Now they want to come out.
And cancel culture. You'll get canceled real quick if you're not behind Black
but
people or black talent. You will get canceled
look,
right now.
you know, one thing I wanted to say is that, like, I remember, like, people don't understand, like, what we have to go through. I remember my third show in Fashion Week, and this is even with my own showroom. I'll never forget this. My third show, before, when we had, this is show, when I say show, I mean New York Fashion Week. My third New York Fashion Week, I don't know what year, I can't remember. I know it was the third or the fourth. What happened is that before we did the higher runway, you know, when you have the lights on you and it's dark, you can't see anyone.
Nope, can't see anybody. Nope.
Nothing in the audience, right? So
Absolutely.
The third or fourth one, we did something creative and we put it on the floor. We put the show on the floor, and it was a box, and the models walked in a certain type of path, creative way on the box. And basically the seating was like risers around, like in the box. You understand? But
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yes. So this is the first time that I actually could see people's reaction in their face, you know, and like, because, you know, they are floor level and higher than me. So now I can actually see them. Okay. At the end of the show, you know, I came out to do my bow, and, you know, people, you clapping and cheering and things like that. But I noticed that it was a lot of people that were shocked. Okay.
Wow.
Like a weird looking like face, like the shock face, a lot that I caught it. Right. After the show, usually like 3 days later, I have the meeting with my showroom to follow up, you know, about press, all of that type of stuff, you know, the follow up meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we have lunch, you know, all companies, you know, we all have that. So I brought that up to them. And I said to them that I noticed, I was like, so what was like the reaction? Like, how was it? I was a little nervous because I noticed that a lot of people were shocked, you know, like their faces were shocked. So I said, I didn't know how to interpret it. And they said to me, well, we get that reaction a lot from you in the beginning because a lot of people didn't know that you were Black.
Wow.
And not just that, it continues. And they said to me, and it was like, you know, also too, when we do your promotion and marketing, we leave all of that out. Like, you know, we just focus on the collection and the brand. And they were just like, you know, the good thing is that, you know, you have an Islamic and Islamic Asian name. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know. So, you know, that really works in your favor.
Yeah. Absolutely. Kirsten, you know, previously Kirsten Holtz, you know, they didn't know what was coming through the door.
But,
you know,
but Kirsten, it's like a double-handed sword. You understand what I'm saying?
Wow.
Like it's like yay, but it's an insult.
Yes.
So, you know, like the mental that it puts on a Black design, you can't be celebrated for yourself. That this is what we have to do to market you. Like, so when people talk about this in third interest, like they never think that like it relates to me. And I'm like, you have no idea like what I had to go through and endure to be here. But also what I did is I stopped that. Like I said, no, like we have to market me.
Wow.
Like
that was brave.
You know, like we have, and yes, it was a lot of push and, you know, pull on it, but I started to do things where it talked about Black culture, you know, or design things and stuff like that. Like you have to do that. Like that. Yeah. My name is Black culture too. If you want to know the history of it.
Uh-oh.
Right.
Getting schooled today.
I had to.
Wow.
Just bringing this all like into like full circle is just the fact that today, like, yeah, things are caught up, and yes, I am happy that people feel more free, to engage and be more supportive and be more informed, but that doesn't affect me.
I'm still giving a side eye, though. I'm still giving a digital side eye to those of you, and you know who you are, who were not down, but all of a sudden you got your fists in the air.
And that's it's why cool I say, but no, really, it's not cool.
It's not cool.
And that's what. Right, like,
but
really,
the pain and disappointment is being released on our end.
Yeah, like, because at the end of the day, we still know that they're closeted. Like, you still are the same way, but you're going to ride this wave, because it's trending and you can benefit from it.
And like, it could be, for some people, it's a form of survival, especially coming out.
No, absolutely.
It's not an easy industry to be in. And, I just a really great conversation that we had with Bonnie Morrison, just talking about, when you're sort of in those environments, some of the behaviors, it's like we have to own and take responsibility for, our actions in that time. And, we got to show some grace, but at the same time, take responsibility, like, hey, that wasn't, my best behavior, but it was, I was trying to survive, so that makes total sense.
But for me, mm-hmm. No, I won't accept that. Mm-hmm. Too many people sacrifice too much for you to get to that position, that level, and act with that behavior. No. Like,
and the behavior wasn't specified. It was just, it was a overarching.
It's the culture
thought about the culture. Yeah.
Because, that was because, they just really assimilated to mainstream fashion culture. That's mm-hmm. because that is the culture, but no, like, no, I won't. Like, I just won't. Because you can't get it back. Like, that hurt to those people,
hurts
to those creators, you cannot get that time back. Those missed opportunities.
So many of us. It's in some of the interviews, I'm just like, oh wait, you felt like there was a ceiling too? Like, you felt like you couldn't move up too? All right.
And what? And that's what I'm just saying. Like, I'm absolutely fine. Like, I understand the society that we live in. I'm way harder on our own people. Like, I won't accept it. Like, I won't take the apology.
Where do you think we could go now to, be better moving forward, and like, how can we move forward from this? As Black people in fashion.
Okay. Right. Okay. So it's so different now because you really don't hold any weight, because before, the business was set up that you had to go through certain channels to become successful. You understand?
Yeah.
Now, you don't need that. That business you don't need them to become successful. So it doesn't even hold any weight anymore. Those institutions are falling. Now you understand what I'm saying to you?
Got it.
They need us. They need the masses. They need what's next and what's new to hold up those institutions.
And the dollars.
Because nobody... Yes, and the dollars. You see what I'm saying? Because nobody is going there because there's so much competition, and it's, direct to consumer. We don't need you anymore. Yeah. That's what people fail to realize, and that's just what a lot of people. We really can we really about to hit some stuff. A lot of people talking about.
Oh Lord, this is part 3. You know, we're just gonna give the month of February to Jedda, I guess. He just gets the full month of February. This will be module number 4.
People are celebrating a lot of the appointments of people of the African diaspora, Black people, you know, to higher executive levels. And I'm like, it means nothing now. We always are given opportunity once shit is burned to the coast. I'm sorry. I don't know if I could. Sorry.
That's fine.
Once things are burned to the ground, you see, then it got me. It got me a little agitated now. But once things are already, you know, burnt to the ground, then we're given what's leftovers. When it means nothing, no significance. All of these companies are all falling to the ground. Oh, sure. When nobody else wants the job, then we'll hire them. No, I'm not impressed.
Quite frankly, wow, just all of the diversity and inclusion people that have been hired over the past year is just phenomenal. And high five to Brandis. Finally, Harlem Fashion Row is getting the funding and everything that it deserves.
But bravo. And you know, like I'm happy for individuals.
Yeah,
like
been in the game for a long time, and nobody was really looking their way.
And because of things are now trending, she can get proper funding. But you know, my thing is that, you know, because she is independent, you know, that business, that's more of what I'm proud of.
Absolutely,
like that is the future. I don't care about mainstream. No, I don't. I only care about you know, us, and that's the truth. That's been 95% of my income, my success. So yes,
look at you circulating the black dollar. Look at that. Okay.
Kirsten, not just that. You asked me about the countries, okay?
Yeah.
So the countries has been from in Italy, I've been France, Spain, London, Mali, Morocco, Egypt, Niger, Angola, Cape Town, almost all the West Indies.
Wow.
I know I'm missing more, but let me tell you, all of these are all fashion projects. Okay.
Wow.
All of those fashion projects were paid from companies of African diaspora, of Black people. Every last one, except for I think one, every trip was paid for, all expenses. Do you hear me? So when people talk to me, I'm just completely different. When they talk to me and want to look at, you know, as you know, like I say, African diaspora, because it's us globally. I know about us globally, global talent and excellence. So when you talk to me and tell me about what we don't have and what we can't do, I'm a prime example of it. So no, I don't care about Eurocentric mainstream fashion because they didn't invest in me. So, and before we had social media where you could see actually like African talent, African like fashion excellence, like
Christy Brown.
You see what I'm saying? Like before people could not see, I was there.
Wow.
To see like, and people ask like, why are you always? That's why I was going back.
And you know what? We have to give a shout out to Arise. Rest in peace. I know it's not still being printed, but when that came out in 2008, like to the States, and they did the big reveal at Fashion Week, I mean, I was just blown away.
But then, unfortunately, like a lot of Black businesses, they sell out to us, and they did that behind the scenes. So I was really disappointed.
It was such a beautiful magazine. It was and great articles on Chinese African relations that I've never forgotten in my entire life. It's just just beautiful. It was such a beautiful magazine, but
but
oh well.
yes, but yeah. So that's what I'm saying, like for me, like we are so behind. Like we are so behind, and that's because we're so full of ourselves. But our industry is just playing catch up to the world. Like we are so behind, and that's because the old guard is trying to hold on, you know, to the last remnants of what fashion used to be. And it would never be that anymore. Never. But yeah, so when we talk about like what's new and all the trending, like, yeah, well, other people like, yay, excited, like, no, because I know it is a global world of fashion for us that is doing amazing things. And that has invested in my career the whole time. So I'm like, yeah, we got a lot of work to do here. And we have to stop looking for handouts from mainstream fashion. And if we would just invest in ourselves.
It kind of reminds me of what Tyler Perry was saying in Black AF on Netflix. I love that show. I know there's been like mixed reviews, but the part about instead of asking to sit at the table, I decided to build my own table. And I may be wrong with the exact words, but that really
but that
he was talking about the Oscars and, you know, Oscars So White and, you know, all of these folks who were just like, you know, in an uproar, but he was just like, you know what, while you guys are over here, you know, in an uproar, I'm going to go build the table.
I think it says that African Americans spend $2 billion in luxury goods annually in the United States.
Wow.
There isn't no reason why we should have any problems on, you know, building goods. No reason. So, but now, you know, people still, you don't want to celebrate because Vogue gives a board to, you know, to African Americans or to extend, you know, exclusivity to people of color.
It was a little thin. I'm not going to lie. It was a little thin. And I was kind of like, oh my God, I feel like I'm reading Essence magazine, but not. And it was just a very weird feeling.
Yeah, because it's not genuine. They are forced. You understand? Like they are forced. It isn't genuine. Those intentions are not genuine. And like from most of, you know, these institutions, it is not genuine. It's forced. This is about business. Now you have to do it because it's on trend. And they already know, like, once the gates open, you can't change. So now they just have to figure out how to operate in this space. Because they want to keep their lights on.
The internet started it, and then social media just knocked it over. You know,
done.
Knocked it over.
It's done. So tell me what's next. How are we closing and how are we wrapping up?
Are you kicking me off of my own show? You know, I have a list here. Oh no, I know you are not kicking me off of my show. We're only like.
Right.
I came prepared with questions, and most of them you answered on your own, or you can segue into your own. So it's a good flow.
Okay, well, bring it on. Bring it on. I'm ready. Bring it on.
So, I mean, literally, I only have 2 questions left because we hit on most of the points. But essentially, well, actually 3. So what does success look like to you personally?
Happiness. That's simple.
Freedom. Don't knock my question talking about easy. Rebecca, you can cut that out. Or John, Rebecca, you guys can cut that one out. Jeez. On to my last 2. I can't with you. All right.
No, but I mean, because for prime example, you said like what does success look like for me? And the
Yeah,
reason
because
why
it's
I
so
said,
complex, you know?
no, but it really isn't. Like for me, one thing that I learned, okay, because now you're gonna make me break it down into detail,
Well,
is what I
because of
learned is
fashion, like
don't.
in fashion, people are like, oh, you're successful if you have a brand, if you are, you know, in a magazine
And
every month, or if you're
you know what?
selling double digit sell
And,
throughs, you know?
and that's exactly what I was getting ready to touch on to you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what I was going to say.
We're on the
Like
same
most
wavelength.
people, yes, most I learned this in my career. Well, an elder, pointed this out to me when I was struggling. Is that the fact that, and I think I might have shared this with you, is that in American culture, it's a self abusive culture. Like we are conditioned to live on a timeline, and that if you do not hit like certain achievements at a certain timeline, you deem yourself a failure.
You're speaking to my soul right now. Continue.
Yes. Okay. So, in a point in the middle of my career, around like the 11th year, this is before I did that show. This is before I did the show. So, this is around like the 11th year, 10th or 11th year. I started to hit the glass ceiling, and I was just like, I have done all of these things. Why can't I move to the next level? And it really, I start to compare myself to my contemporaries. And to me, I'm just like, if they can have this, why don't I have X, Y, and Z? And why not blah, blah, blah? And for an example, that just leads into a slippery slope of depression. Okay.
Been there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people can relate to this. And so that's when an elder, one of my trips, I was overseas in Africa. I think I was in Niger. This was like my second or third time going back to the country that time. And that's what he was explaining to me about American culture and why he had to leave. And he said he had to come back home because he said it was American culture is like prison to him. He said it's just so many rules. It's so many restrictions. It's so many limitations. And he was just saying it's just so much of, like he was like, you're not living. You're just bred to work. And he said to me that my problem is that he said, I couldn't see the beauty in what I have accomplished and what I have. The only thing I'm complaining about is what I don't have. And he said that I'm comparing myself, and that's why, I'm going to depression. He said, because no one is alike. And we are bred in the States that if you're at this level, you're supposed to have this. And he said, that's not true. So he said, these are unrealistic expectations that you set up for yourself. And this is when my thought process started to change. And he said, I had to get rid of all of that. He said, you continue to work. He said, when you work, things happen. He told me first, he said, stop working towards those things. He said, first off, what makes you happy? He said, figure out your purpose and figure out what makes you happy. He said, and then work towards that. He said, as you work towards that, things will unfold. Stop thinking that you can control everything. You can't. He said, you can only work towards it. And that is what changed. I really started to work outside the box of everything or what I thought a designer was, what's the design is supposed to be and what you're supposed to have and the image and all the BS that comes around it. I changed all of that. And that's because of that I was creating my own cell, my own prison with unrealistic expectations. And then I started to work towards happiness. And that's why when you said, what is success to you? Whatever makes me happy. That's what I just want, to be happy and to be free. That's why I gave you the short answer, but I had to go through all of that to get to that.
Wow. Dear Lord, let me hold it together, because that was a word. And it's you know, in the Black church, when you hear something multiple times, you're like, oh, I just got confirmation. Well, that was a confirmation for me. And it also gave me peace to know that, you know, somebody else has also gone through that. And it's so I don't think we've ever talked about that moment in your life.
But no, yeah. And, you know, one thing, the thing about controlling, because what he said just makes sense to it. Remember, he was talking about that. A big problem that we have is that if things are not going, he said, life is about change. There's always going to be a wrench thrown into the plan. He said, you have to accept the change and go with the change. And a lot of times we fight that. And that's what I started to do. So yes, I have plans and I start to work towards things. That's, you know, the projects that I have, but it constantly changed. But now today I'm at a space to realize that it's supposed to happen this way, and just work with it. Don't work against it. So yes, I'm not going to sit here and say to you, and that's why I said to you, I'm not going to say that this is what I want, this is my ideal, and I to have this. Yeah, I do have a grand scheme and a grand picture of what I want.
Well, I mean, you live in New York, of course.
Yeah. But, you know, you do have ideal goals that you want to hit, you know, along the way. But it constantly changes. So it's nothing that I can say that that's what I want. I know at the end of the goal, that goal is to get to happiness. That's what I want. Happiness and freedom and more important, service. That too. I missed that part. Like service.
Wow.
Like that's a big part. Like there is so much like of what I went through, like be the change that you want to see. Like I want to fix those things that another individual coming behind me don't have to suffer the way that I did. So me serving with my purpose makes me happy, gives me the freedom. That's why I was saying to you, a short answer was just happiness.
You know, we like the long responses on this show.
I know.
We're going in, okay? You know, let me put my Oprah Winfrey hat on. What do you know for sure?
Yes, I do. You know, I just want to put out, because I noticed too that throughout my career, don't say exactly what you want to do until it is set in stone and paperwork is done and, and
you know what? Kim Kardashian actually said that her mom, that was the best advice her mother ever gave her, was do not announce something before it's finished, like before it's ready to go.
It's trademarked, yes, and copyrighted, and you know. But I'm working on a global scheme to remedy the things that I went through, so talent behind me don't have to. And that's the best way. So a global network.
Pipeline.
Okay?
Yes. Just tell me which country we're going to for the live podcast show. Just tell me which country. I'll be there.
Because you know, I have some fabulous international friends. Okay.
Yes.
Doing major things. I'm really fortunate, and I'm like, all these people, all of us in all these places across the world need to come together, and we need to work instead of working in separate, you know, festivals and separate concerts.
Coming together.
Conference, like I don't understand why it's like 10, 15 different festivals and conferences. This needs to come together. So yes.
I'll be waiting. I'm excited.
Yeah, okay. So that's my happiness.
Love it. You're like, back to my happiness.
Back to my that's my happiness. Okay?
I love it. Oh my, well, that's so powerful. And of course, this is a fashion moment, and I always conclude by asking, what is your favorite fashion moment of all time. It could be personal, professional, or both, or even something that you observed that was, very impactful and powerful for you. It can also be frivolous. We've had people talk about their outfits one day. It really varies.
No, no. You're going. You only get like you're going to relate to this, because I think about that young man that just got to New York to fashion, like the first time the Fashion Week, and going to Fashion Week, like the shows and events. Mm-hmm. Like you can't describe, like only people that experience that first time understand. It was a whole nother world. I remember that, like that feeling, like, and times you only get a first time to experience something for the first time. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. But it was, I remember that person, and I always like the world beats you up. When you first get to, you're like, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, and you go through, and it beats you up. But I always, when things get tough, I remember the first time, like going to New York Fashion Week. Yeah. And I mean, back then it turned into something else, like, and later on down the years, just marketing and but back then, like all of the, just the industry people, the lights, the runs on the shows, and because the run of the shows, because we had, insider friends, we go backstage, and the running of the racks, the models running in and out, the chaos. It was so much energy, and I was like I made it. Like, this is fashion.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, I can't just, like, people, like, that feeling because you were there. Yeah.
So I mean, whoo! I was like, how did this black girl from Colton, California, end up at the tents?
And like when you went to like your first major show, and it was just like all this chaos and hundreds of people being followed in, and everybody loving and kissing one another and talking and chatting, and then all of a sudden the lights go down. It's a feeling, what I'm saying? The lights just go down, and it's quiet as a mouse. And then, boom, the music hits, the lights go up, the girl comes out, pumping down the run, like she's galloping like a horse.
Walks.
And her hair is like, oof.
Yes.
Like,
I get chills thinking about it now.
Yes, like that. I would never forget my first Fashion Week moment. Like, I would never forget that. Like, right, the chills, like you're just gasping. Like, bro, as soon as she turned that corner. It was, being in the business, that first girl is very important.
Very.
The first model is very, the first model and the closer is very important in our business. Yes. Mm-hmm. You have to pick the person, the perfect girl, to bring that look, that theme, that aesthetic to life. It is so important. Like, everybody has to understand what the collection is by that first girl. That music, that light, it's nothing. So yes, that, Kirsten, when I get in my down moments and I think about my first Fashion Week experience and the dreams that I had and the visions and aspirations and so much joy. Like, you're just fresh and you're innocent. There was no boundaries. Anything is possible. And you're just there, and it's just magical. And then also, I'm short. I'm 5'7", 5'8". Those girls in heels are like glamazon. Okay, and the fans. the saying, the higher the hill, the closer to God. So, we put those girls, and they just pumped. They were just like angels to me. That is my go-to.
I love it.
The fashion moment. That's my fashion moment.
Well, thank you so much, Jedda, for being on the show. I cannot wait to see what you do next and all the amazing projects that are just really down the road. And thank you for inspiring all of us and educating us in this conversation.
But, and also too, I really want to speak to, the indie designers and the emerging designers, because, that's my heart. Like, that's my place. So it was important for me to be honest for them.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you're welcome back anytime. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Now it's time for my favorite segment where we get to hear from you, our listeners, about your favorite fashion moments.
My name is Ashley J. Williams, and I'm a visual artist based out of Washington, D.C., and I work out of a home studio that I share with my partner and fellow painter, Anthony Lay. My fashion moment was dyeing my hair green about 3 years ago, and this has transformed my life and my fashion sense. A little backstory real quick. When I was a teenager, I was very interested in fashion and enjoyed expressing myself through how I dress. I even wanted to study fashion in college. However, growing up, I also struggled with an eating disorder for over a decade, which left me as an adult with a lot of set ideas about who I thought I should be and what I thought I should look like. Basically, dyeing my hair green for the first time and looking into the mirror, I felt unburdened by the expectations of my body that have always plagued me. I had spent literally zero time or energy creating rules and regulations for green-haired Ashley. My green hair doesn't seek to please anyone but me. It is a way I can express myself and my unique fashion feeling untethered. It's wholly mine and mine alone. I don't have a litany of preconceived notions of what green-haired Ashley should or shouldn't be, what she should or shouldn't weigh. My green hair makes me feel free, and I've actually been incorporating green-haired women in my work as well.
Thanks so much for joining me for this week of A Fashion Moment. If you like what you hear, we'd love for you to join our community of listeners and spread the word about the show. We also want to hear from you. Share your favorite fashion moments and dream guests with us by sending an audio clip or email to afashionmomentpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can tag us on Instagram at A Fashion Moment, and you could be featured on next week's episode. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and let us know what you think. Until then, see you next time for another fashion moment. Podcast production by Rebecca Rashid and John Taylor Williams. Digital media production by Megan Porras.
This recording carries a Creative Commons 4.0 international license. Thanks to Patrick Patricios for their song, Hot Coffee.